All right, guys, good afternoon. Doing a couple of live videos for Sunday. Going to do one on here, then do one on the Spanish channel. I haven't really been updating this channel too much lately. I do get people asking about the Philippines stuff, and I help where I can on that stuff. I do find the Philippines is changing a bit, but still not changed that much, so there's a lot of infrastructure stuff going on and development, but on the politics side, not really getting into that side, but yeah, helping where I can. But anyway, just want to go over some questions and stuff that people have asked me, because a few questions, and if you've got any questions as well, just put them in the live chat on the side, and I'll try and answer it the best I can as well. First one was because I traveled to the Philippines back in 2007, and it's quite funny where you get some abusive stuff online, and they have no understanding that you did it over a decade ago, and that's the thing. I've been married 12 years. I went out to the Philippines 12 years ago, but I do recommend traveling when you're young. That was one of the first questions somebody asked. Was, do I still recommend it? The answer is yes. Was it a good move, and did I have any regrets? You can't really go through life with regrets. One of the things I will always push is don't have regrets, just take the experience side. For me, going out to the Philippines changed a lot of things. It changed perspective. It changed my outlook on life. It actually gave me life back, because I had found the UK a shade of grey. It was just same old. You go to work, you pay your bills, you go out drinking at the weekend, you go to work on a Monday, and it was just the hamster wheel. Going to the Philippines completely changed all that. It changed my complete view on things, and that's one of the things I will say. That's the positive. It can change your views, and you'll find most people that will talk about traveling will mention that their views change. The downside of that is your views have changed. So it's very hard to, once you've disconnected yourself from the stuff that we're often pushed, which is often around being a good citizen and following a specific path and doing as you're told, which makes it easier for government, makes it easier for marketing, makes it easier for sales, makes it easier for the banks. You then become somebody that's very independent. You start to see you can do a lot more. You can survive on your own. You become more independent. You see the bigger picture. It's like when you see a lot of the negative stuff in the Middle East. I spent time in the Middle East, and I found people fantastic. I had zero issues in the Middle East whatsoever. But the point is, that's what happens when you start traveling. So there's good and bad on it. One of the things you'll have to accept is your perspective on the world changes, and often you will see the realities and how that is very different often to how the media portray things, which is another subject for another day. Neil Bryan, hi Matt, looking good, brother. Losing a few pounds, I see. Yeah, still losing weight. But a few people mentioned about the Exante and the use of soya and some of the other stuff in there. I'm not on Exante every day, and I'm not on it all day. It's like today I've just had a piece of bread, and I think on top of the bread there was I think it was egg. April had made it. I think it was scrambled egg with a bit of mayonnaise, not mayonnaise, yogurt, and some grapes on a nice piece of bread. But it's not supermarket bread, if you know what I mean. It's organic. So the point being is it's making those changes. But I do find the Exante diet is very good if, for example, you went off for the Christmas period and had been binge eating and whatever because you're going out to different events, people's houses and stuff. If you did a week with the Exante, it'll drop about up to about 5 kilos quite easily, I find. Not a problem. Glenn Roberts, in this life, you have to take risks to get anywhere. Yeah, I agree totally. I mean, that's one of the things I will say. I don't have any regrets on stuff I've done. There is certain things you wish you could have done something about, but at the same time, it would have been impossible. You know, connections with my daughter, for example, there wasn't much I could do unless I'd stayed in my old life. But my old life was so day to day. I just didn't. It just wasn't me because up until 1989, I'd lived overseas, so I'd already experienced travel and trying new things and doing stuff. And then I got into this routine where it was just a hamster wheel. So it wouldn't have been healthy for me to stay in that environment. And that's the thing you got to realize. That's what I'm saying. You've got to take things as experience, because when you sit there and look at it and analyze it, and you go, oh yeah, but if this, it's like, yeah, but live with your choices. Don't see the regrets, just see the experiences. And the fact is, without trying things, you'll never experience nothing. As Glenn Roberts says, tingle tingles. If you go to a cold country, you should start a channel on Matt's Fireside Chat. Now, there may be something on that, and I'm not going to spill the beans on that at the minute. There is something that may be coming up very, very soon, and that's good timing for you to bring that up. But there is something in the pipeline. Yeah, so I'm just ticking off some of the questions people have asked me. So I've already covered perspective. So that's one of the things I will say, perspective changes. Another one is, would I still recommend the Philippines? Because obviously I went to the Philippines for 8 years from 2007 onwards. And the Philippines for me is more home than the UK. My connections with April's in-laws, my in-laws, is a lot stronger than it is with my own flesh and blood. There's reasons before that, but I'm not really going to get into it too much. But it's a real family connection. It's more traditional. It's more connected. It's not money driven. It's So for me, the Philippines will always be high on my list of places to be, call home, experience, etc. But I would still recommend for others for getting perspective on life. If you're looking for a lifelong partner, there's a lot of available options in the Philippines. And I know some people will say, just don't get married on this, but I'm saying you can't. You can encapsulate everybody into that. If people want a relationship, Philippines is great. You can meet some fantastic ladies, guys, if you're a woman, and you can find a piece of happiness. I also find that the pace is a lot slower. Like Spain, the pace is slower. So it's not all rushing around and frustrating sometimes. It's just like, yeah, whatever. It'll get there when it gets there. And I like that. It's nice to have some of that. I know sometimes you'll hear me complain about, prime example, I just changed my phone over to Lobster. Now, the thing with this is my new SIM, is they were supposed to keep my old phone number. And that's what I said to them. This is why I'm talking to the person that's actually selling me the phone SIM. And you know what? She messed it up. So now I'm having to try and get my old number back before it leaves my old provider. But that sort of stuff, I could get frustrated, could get annoyed. You just email it and wait. Once you slip into that, not everything runs smoothly. A lot of this stuff you just push to the side. Where I find in the UK, you get frustrated, you get annoyed because you're paying for this and they're not doing it properly. But yeah, it's expected. And I'll get grief off some of my Spanish friends for saying that, but that's the reality of it. You've got to expect some of this stuff. If it doesn't work, doesn't work. It's a bit like when you get something home that's brand new and it's broke, and then I'm to get in the car to take it back to the shop, and then go, oh yeah, we'll just give you another one. And it's like, but I've just paid for the petrol to come here twice now, and my time and everything else. It's right saying just change it in the box, but the point being is there's no point arguing about it. It's just the way it is, and some things are never changing. Tingles. It'll be a little bit different. Can't really say much at the minute. It's something that's in the pipeline, and I'll know more tomorrow. But one of the things I have been looking at here in La Mata in Spain is the property. There's a very healthy rental market here, and a few people have been sort of discussing, well, what if you want to sell it? I buy here, they're not for sale, they're for rent. And what I'll do is look to transfer them over when I get to a certain age so that my kids inherit them after that as well. So they just continue. You know, don't get me wrong, if they're working and stuff, I will still take all the rent money because this is buying to rent them out. But once they get to a certain age and I'm sort of finished, they'll basically just take the properties and they'll just continue renting them out. The reason for that is the taxes are a bit of a pain in the backside in Spain. But buying to rent out, there is good opportunities. Buying to sell and buying to, you know, expecting the market to go up, don't recommend it. But buying to rent them out in a place like this on the coast, it's ridiculously busy at holiday season. There's some markets, long-term and short-term, you know, because a 3-bedroom here can charge up to €100 a day on the short-term rentals, but long-term rentals, you'll get about two-thirds of the rent will cover your costs, and another third is profit per month at current market mortgage rates and everything else. So there's a good market here to actually make some profit on properties for the long term. And I'm looking at setting this up as a pension plan. And it's not unachievable. It's quite, because the properties are a reasonable price here in Spain. You know, what I'd be paying for a property here would be a deposit in the UK in many places. And the thing is, as soon as you've got it, like here in La Mata, there's hardly any long-term rentals available. There's people wanting them, but they're not available. So the point is, you will not struggle to get people to move into them. That's not an issue. There's a lot of things around the legalities of ownership and tenants' rights and all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, if you went for a specific market, holiday rentals, retirees, because one of the things I'll say about retirees is a lot of them, I'll tell them not to invest in property in the purchase point of view, because of the ingoing taxes and life expectancies and stuff. They're often better off just renting. And also, it's easier to wrap up estates afterwards. So, yeah, I'm looking at that as a definite option for us here. Which sort of ties into the next one, a bit of an update. There's a few business things we're looking at as well. The air conditioning stuff I'm going to be progressing with. I'm going to be looking at doing more of that when I'm back in the UK somewhere. But the point being is there's a market for doing air conditioning servicing, repairs, replacements here on the coast. There's also a market for solar energy and solar water heaters, because there's been changes in relation to this, what's called the solar tax in Spain. So there's a few options there, and I'm just waiting for a company to come back to me about the solar panels and solar water heaters. They're already established, but they're not in this area. To try and work with them, they do training courses on all their installations and stuff, and they've got a few people that actually want to come and work with us. So there's a lot of stuff still going on in Spain. A lot of this stuff I'm looking for people to run, and I'll manage, but they'll be doing the installations and stuff. The whole point is I'll deal with the marketing, deal with the suppliers, the investments, all that sort of stuff. So the point is there's opportunities there. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. Stephen Berth, afternoon, Matt. Hopes all's good. It's all good. We had a bit of an event here in La Mata yesterday, which is on the Alicante Spain channel, which was nice. They had the flag ceremony, but also there was flown at half mast as well, because there was somebody lost. I think it was last year or in the last 6 months. But it was an interesting event. My son loved it. You know, he got to try on the riot helmet and looking at guns and all sorts of stuff. So he loved it. But But yeah, I mean, that's the thing with La Mata. Even today, there's a big thing with a paella. They're cooking some paella on the square. We've also got, I think, the bull run's coming up, which is a kids' bull run. They're inflatable, and people basically push you around with these inflatable bulls and run through the street with all the kids. They'll get dressed up in white shirts and red scarves, and the bulls run around riot, inflatable bulls. So that's entertaining. The boxcar racing must be coming up as well, I think. Well, so we've got the Grand Prix as well, Kids Grand Prix as well. So a lot of activities all the way through the year here. And if you look at the Alicante channel, you'll see some of the live music and stuff. And the good thing is it's all free as well. Glenn Roberts, Spain is offering automatic residency for people buying property from 130,000. Residency isn't really affected around property at the moment anyway. A lot of the Chinese came out here over 5 years ago because they got tax incentives, like tax-free if they invested, I think it was over €500,000 or something. But I would say you may get the automatic residency. I'd be a bit dubious on that, depending where the source comes from, because if it's not from state officially, when you try and go to the foreigner's office to get the paperwork done, they may not even know about it. It could be a real estate ploy and stuff. Because I'm seeing a lot of false media where people are trying to sell the paperwork. Because, like getting the NIE, getting the residency, getting all the paperwork and all that. Oh, you've got to have this done by, and they're just selling it. That's it. It's like the UK was doing it with the driving licenses, where they were saying, you must transfer because of Brexit, and at the same time, you didn't. I think you had to pay an extra fee to go to international. But then, let's face it, you would either be a Spanish resident or a UK resident, and either way, you would need a Spanish license or a British license. So having that international license wouldn't actually correct that problem, because you may actually be have an international driving license for the wrong country, in the sense that you have to transfer your license over anyway. My driving license is Spanish. Sean Yan Yip, need to retrain to be an air conditioning engineer. Do recommend doing the aircon. I do recommend doing Spanish, and a few people have mentioned about coming over and they don't speak Spanish yet. Spanish is something you really need to hammer if you want a job locally. Real estate agents are looking for. They're looking for Spanish, English, Russian, Scandinavian languages, because a lot of this is around the housing market on the coast. Don't get me wrong, you'll find something if you go into Barcelona, you'll find something going to Madrid, but specifically on the coast, it's predominantly around the housing market. And they've got a lot of choice on the coast, because you're looking at about 50% of the population is foreigners, and they're multilingual. So if you just speak English and go in there, they're probably not even going to reply to your CV, because they've got so many other people available that will speak at least 2 languages. But if you speak Spanish, you can get your foot in the door with most places. You may not get the job that you want, you may not get the job that you normally do, but there is always options there. Suyan Yip, solar panel installers, as always, giving brilliant information. Yeah, solar panels are going to be increasing. Like I said, they've changed the tax in Spain. I'm just dealing with a company at the moment. I'm waiting for them to come back to me when we can go up and do some training with them, have a look at their business setup and see how we can market it. But it's a viable thing, because you've got to remember, you've also got swimming pools here. So putting circulation on there for the solar water heating, so it gives free heating for the swimming pool. You could put the pumps on solar panels, because the water circulation for the swimming pools. There's a lot of opportunities there that were sort of retracted previously because of the solar tax, which put people off. It just wasn't worth investing in equipment when the government's basically charging you for something they haven't invested anything in, because you paid for it all. Stephen Berth, seen a picture, showed Kobe, it looked great. There's always something, because you got to remember, La Mata is here, but Guadalmar's here and Torrevieja's here. and you can literally walk to either of them. I mean, it's not saying it's a short walk, but you can walk to either place. And they have other events as well. They have fiestas and things. There's always activities on in the area. It's really, really good. Lucas, hey, how's it going? Michael, Arau Indigo City? I don't know. You'd have to Google that, because I don't know, because there's always sort of things like the Kalawan Festival in Minglanilla. They don't really promote it too much. And I know, speaking with people before, it was because they didn't want to attract any more people because it's already full. You know, if you know it's on, the place is full already. So they didn't really want to promote it. So they didn't really put signs up, didn't market it, didn't need to. And that's what we find even in La Mata. We live here, but we'll drive past the plaza and you'll suddenly see, where did that brass band come from? Or you'll hear music and they've got a live event on, and yet it wasn't really marketed. And I know, speaking to a few people about it, they've approached the town hall about, will they let them know when things are going on so we can promote it to people from other countries? Not interested. It's really weird. It's really weird. But if you know, it's like some of the events here are they're outside the tourist season, and yet they have people coming from Guatemala, Torreveja, and Quesada, whatever, to see them. And it's only really sometimes that you just happen to know somebody that knows it's on, or, you know, a lot of them don't really have any flyers, nothing. And the Philippines is exactly the same. Michael, how do the Philippines like President Trump? I suppose you'd have to ask different people, because you'll get different views from different people. Yeah, you'll have to speak to different people, because the stuff even with Duterte, you'll see the media is positive and negative, depending who you talk to, and depending what they've heard, what they understand around it. There's completely different perspectives. You know, you get some people saying it's doing a great job, other people saying, you know, it's the worst thing that's ever happened. It's like anywhere, you've got to spend a bit of time with the people and get a view from the people and why they have that view. Because sometimes you'll hear stuff and then you go, but that's not actually true. It's something they've heard, or somebody said that they're somebody seen, blah, blah. And it's like, but that isn't true, is it? Because you can't even validate it. There's no news articles around it even. It's just somebody said like this. Somebody said, it's not fact. But that gossip factor does create some issues. Glenn Roberts, do the Spanish like Boris Johnson? To be honest, Spanish, I know, don't really take that much interest. The same with the whole Brexit thing. They don't take any interest. They just have a bit of confusion on what the UK is actually doing, from the people I spend some time with, because it just doesn't seem logical. You know, it's because from the people I know, it just doesn't make any sense. But if you look at how long it's been dragged out, and half in, half out, and all this sort of stuff, I could understand that as well. It's frustrating, because you're just like, well, what are you actually doing? But then you get the media in the UK having a lot of negative stuff around the tabloids and scaremongering and all this sort of stuff. And then you get the Spanish media saying that, you know, as long as you put yourself in the system and stuff, don't worry about it. They'll give residency to people already here and this sort of stuff. So you've got these media at completely opposite ends with the same stories even. It's very peculiar. But that's one of the problems you have in the media today, and that's why, like my first point around the traveling is like with the Middle East. When I spent time in the Middle East, I was finding, you know, people would say all this negative stuff, and then when you're there, it's often very different, because you're actually spending time with people. It's not, because if people say, well, everybody's just fine, people are just, you know, nice to each other or whatever, it doesn't really sell news. It's people just going about their daily lives. Doesn't really sell stories very well. So a lot of this stuff is just drummed up to try and create issues when often there isn't any. I think I've already covered it, but yeah, buy to rent in Spain was another because that's coming up quite regular on the Alicante channel as well. The buy to rent, I would say, is very good in this area. It doesn't really matter what's going on with the Brexit because it's like we've been managing a apartment here for David, and with David, the people that were there came from France, Spain. I'm not sure, was it Latvia? Well, let's put it this way: there wasn't Ireland, but there wasn't any people actually coming out of England or Scotland, whatever. It was predominantly people within the EU. And that's the one thing I will say that will continue. And the other side of this being this area, from the majority of the owners, majority of people that stay, they come from Bilbao, they come from Madrid, they come from Barcelona. It's got a strong Spanish tourism market here as well. So it's not really going to be affected too negatively because the UK market isn't its main market. But also, even on the land, the purchases of properties and stuff, as I was saying earlier about the Scandinavian stuff, a lot of the buyers are coming from other parts of Europe. A lot of Russians here, a lot of Ukrainians, a lot of people from different parts of Europe that are buying here. So although the market has been predominantly British, it's a lot more than the media make out. And like I said, for us, we're looking at doing the buying property, rent them out, trying to look at some of them we can rent to rent, in the sense of we'll put down a deposit, take over a property, rent it straight out, and get somebody else paying the mortgage or the debt on the property, because it's not difficult for us to fill these properties. So it's definitely a market to look at if you're interested. What's that one? That's yeah, it's a few bits about the channel as well. The channel, you probably noticed, been doing a lot more on the personal development stuff. Some of this is because I've been looking at it a lot more recently, because the way YouTube's changing as well. Some of the subjects we normally cover, they get demonetized because of the way it's set up today. You may have seen the changes around stuff around children as well. You know, a lot of these ones that are focused on marketing to children or children's channels, whatever. YouTube's changing a lot. But around the personal development, I've been sort of looking at it more and more because there's been a lot of people approach me with specific issues, and some of it I think they could actually avoid it. I also think that some people can evolve themselves a bit more as well, you know, because some of the stuff's around confidence, some of it's around better money management, some of it's around dealing with relationships better, or wanting to find somebody, or setting up for retirement or whatever. So I've been doing a lot more on the personal development. I think I'll continue doing more on that stuff as well, because I think it's important that the channel can monetize that way. So from a financial point of view, it doesn't make a lot of money, but I mean, to be honest, it keeps the electric and stuff on in the Philippines. It pays the electric bills and stuff like that in the Philippines. But the point being is it makes it more practical for me on a multi-point. First one is from a monetary point of view. Second one is that I like helping people. That's the whole point of the channel. So when I was originally started around the Philippines, it was because of the opportunities you can get from the Philippines, changing your perspective, traveling for the first time, because people predominantly speak English as well as other local dialects, etc. It's a good opportunity to do something different. And when you do that, it opens even more opportunities, because if you haven't traveled before, you get more confidence there because you've done your first trip, and then you sort of experienced it a bit more. It's a bit like my mother-in-law when I brought her over to Spain. She'd never been on a plane or anything before. Well, she had internally. She'd been to Manila. But the first trip, I flew all the way to the Philippines to basically fly all the way back, so that she knew how to deal with the different airports, because she's not too good on her legs these days. So it's knowing how to engage with different people, get through passport control and all that sort of stuff. So the next trip she did on her own. And that's the prime example of, giving somebody more mobility and accessibility to travel. And some of this is around confidence, some of it's about understanding how you can do this stuff yourself. And that's just one example. But there's many other things out there, like getting out of debt, how to meet somebody, how to deal with relationships in a modern society and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff I want to try and carry on with on that. So I'm looking at that more and more. And this gets onto another subject around people arguing within the expat community. I'm not buying into it. I'm not getting dragged into it. I do get messages from people trying to get me involved in he said, she said, and all this. I'm not interested. If you watch the video on the masculinity one before this one, I actually covered the fact of it doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter about this he said, she said stuff. It doesn't matter. It's a bit like when I was getting trolled before, and it's like, oh, you banned from the Philippines, you got this, blah, blah, blah. And as I said to one of the guys then, I said, are you going to apologize when it comes to the Philippines then? Well, obviously not. They go quiet because all the lies suddenly just disappear because suddenly you've proven them wrong because you've done it. Doing live videos from the Philippines and stuff. It shows you there. It's all live. Da da da. The point being is, you've got to understand that some people want to try and keep that going, and there'll be something else the next week. My personal view: don't get dragged into it. Doesn't matter, oh, he was doing this. It doesn't matter. Because most of the stuff I see isn't even true. But anyway, move past that. Glyn Roberts, sounds like the British are staying away or going back to the UK. No, I don't think the market's changed much. That's what I'm saying. It's not really gone one way or the other. The way to calculate it is from the tourism numbers. For Spain, and that really hasn't changed that much. And you will get media say, oh, dropped or whatever, but they forget about some of the issues in other countries which actually increased the numbers in Spain. I'm not trying to say anything around it too much because that's one of the things that I do see gets flagged up when it comes to monetization. But the point being is there was an influx of extra people coming to Spain because of some other stuff happening in other locations. Now, if there was a drop in the difference between the year before, well, there would have been a drop anyway because people are going back to those other countries again because the media hypes dropped down, so people's interest increased. So I wouldn't say it's changed too much at all. Glenn Roberts, have you heard about Article 13 about YouTube? I just leave all that stuff. There's always something. There's always something going on, and for me, I just wait and see what happens. Yeah, I'm out of questions. Anybody else got any questions? Gone through them quite quick as well. It was 30 minutes, and we got through all the questions that have been asked. Danny Gordon's answering Michael's questions. Digos became a city 18 or 19 years ago. Danny Gordon, are you going back to the Philippines anytime soon? Not at the moment. I've got a lot of stuff on at the moment because one of the things we're looking at doing is there's a property over here I want to purchase. So that's going to suck a lot of my cash for at least the next 18 months. But there's also other stuff going on relating to some work contracts and other bits and pieces. So I'm going to be very busy. My mother-in-law will be back over in Spain again. So we'll be setting that up for next year so that she can travel over again. And might have to do something else access-wise because she struggles with the car now because she's got problems with her legs. So I might have to look at getting a bigger car, I suppose, or get the van. That'd be enough to. just from a mobility point of view, because you can get, one of the things in Spain is it seems that the taxes are slightly different, whether you something classified as a commercial van or it's a car. So you'll see a lot of half vans here, like you'll get a Kango or something with 5 seats in it, and it's got the extra side windows rather than side panels, so it's a car rather than a van, because it affects how many times it gets what's called an ITV, which is the roadworthiness test. But I think there's things around taxations and stuff as well, which is slightly different. But something like that would be ideal for that. But yeah, I mean, the Philippines, love to go back, but obviously for me, a lot of it's around my mother-in-law coming to here, because for us going back, it's 4 of us going to the Philippines or 1 of us coming over to Spain. So the easiest option is bringing 1 person over to Spain. I know April's interested in going back to see her friends and stuff because she hasn't seen them for 5 years now. But it's not really urgent, because a lot of the family members aren't in the Philippines, because we've got uncles that work overseas and stuff, so they're not all in one place, so there's people traveling around. There's other family members that are working in other islands and stuff. So if you do go back, it's not everybody's there. At Christmas time, everyone tries to get back, but a lot of the time, people ain't there. April doesn't like traveling in the bad weather either, so she's not too keen on flying in the November, December time. So that's the reason we don't go back in the winter. Son Yan Yip, where in the Philippines do you recommend if they're traveling over there for the first time? Some people like Manila, but I find Manila is a bit condensed. I like Cebu myself. The reason I like Cebu is you can get out of the city within about 40 minutes to an hour, and go north of the island, south of the island. It's very different. It goes from very condensed and lots of people to you start to just see a fish farm and stuff like that as you get further and further away. And you still got the towns, you still got casinos and stuff, pocketed developments. But also from Cebu, you've got the pier, so you can get on the fast boat over to Bohol and other places in the Visayas regions. You can travel around there very easily, and it's not expensive. So you can use the ferries. They're cheap, and just hop on one, go over to Bohol for the day or a couple of days, go somewhere else, go to Leyte, there's a lot of opportunities there to travel around. The other thing, somebody else might know more on this about the taxes relating to moving motorcycles and stuff, because I think if you take a bike over, it can be quite expensive. Not overly expensive, but if you're traveling around a bit, there's charges every time you stick it on a ferry. I don't think we paid that much actually when we went to Negros Island, though, because originally we took it on a banker. There's an old video of us where people were putting it down, the motorbike around down a plank of wood to get it on the boat. You're just thinking that's going to drop in a minute. But on the way back, we went via Ro-Ro, which is roll-on, roll-off ferry, and it cost exactly the same. So we should have just gone with the ferry in the first place, because there was no difference in the price, and it was completely hassle-free, rather than thinking they're going to drop the motorbike into the water. Yeah, that's it. Danny Gordon, I take a trike, and it's not that bad on a Ro-Ro. There you go. So there you go. There's plenty of places to travel around, and that's why I think Cebu is great as a starting place. And then you can get round there to the other islands and experience different things. There's a lot on the doorstep, and also you got the different types of living. You got like high rises down in Cebu City, around the IT park, around Banilad, etc. Or you can go to a smaller town or a smaller city, or you can go urban. It's not urban. Go provincial. The rents can go from 30,000 pesos a month to 1,000 a month. Depending what living standards you like. And the other thing is you've got a lot of Western food available in Cebu. for those that like to eat out, etc. There's a lot of options there. Manila's the same, but I would say I find Cebu easier to run around, cheaper in the sense that not everybody's trying to hit you up for cash every 5 minutes. You will get taxis try and overcharge you when they can. Just get them, put the meter on. If you're going long distance, you can kind of deal with them sometimes. But if you're at the airport and going to a specific place, before you go there, ask the person how much it should cost. So, for example, if you were going from the airport to Mindanilla, you can get a price of, say, 400 pesos. So when the taxi driver tries to charge you 1,000, just tell them, no, 400. And then they'll go, oh, 800. It's like, no, 400. And then just walk away. The next taxi will take you for 400. Just tell them, will you take us to Mindanilla for 400? Yeah, okay, off you go. But just be aware, a lot of time people will try, if you're a foreigner, they'll try and overcharge you. But they also do it if you're from a different region as well. People in Manila will get hit up in Cebu for extra charges just as much as we do. So it's normal. Yeah, Sunjan, yeah, thanks for the info. A lot to think about. You're welcome. Happy to share what I can. Danny Gordon, in most provinces, it's very cheap to rent on long and short term, or you can use Airbnb. Yeah, I agree. The cost of living's where the cost of living changes is with children. This is where people sometimes get in the arguments with me saying, "Oh, it's cheap to live it." I think they mix up when you're single or a couple, because a couple's cost of living isn't much off one person. You're still paying the rent of one place, for example. The electric bill is round about the same, etc. Where it differs is when you start having kids, because like for my kids, they have private medical. My kids have private education when they're in the Philippines. So the cost goes up. And obviously we had a tricycle driver take them to and from school as well every day. The cost of schooling and healthcare, etc. in the Philippines, when you put that together with the general cost of living, it costs me as much in the Philippines as it does to live in Spain. Yet the standard living in Spain and education is higher. And obviously you haven't got the dust issues in the air and stuff that you often get in the Philippines. It's a good environment to live in. So there's a lot of things like that which often don't get weighed up, and it's one of the problems that people suddenly hit, because there was I think the guy was Norwegian. I was waiting for a taxi the one day, and he was telling me how his doctor had sold his wife some birth controls that were placebos, so she'd become pregnant and stuff. And he was like, I think nearly 70, and he didn't really want a child, and he's now got all the extra expense and stuff which he hadn't even budgeted for, because obviously it wasn't something they had planned, and the doctor suddenly was unavailable. Yeah, so kids can be expensive in the Philippines. Roy Goad, first time is probably Palawan, El Nido, Boracay, Surigao Island. Yeah, the other thing with those places, they're predominantly tourism. It depends on what they're actually looking at doing. If they're going there as a tourist, they're the easy spots. If they're looking to settle and move there, I'd recommend the other places, because they're more focused on day-to-day life. But yeah, they're all good spots. David Barr, hi Matt, nice to see you. Is a Filipino automatically entitled to Spanish citizenship? There's a criteria for it. You've got to show their connection to Spain. So you've got to go and source your heritage, etc., and your connections with Spain. Now, that process I'm not sure of, because we haven't needed it. So there's bits and pieces in there but is it an automatic right? No. But at the same time, you'll find a lot of people become citizens a lot easier in Spain than many other countries, just because of the way the system is. It's a lot easier. But also, as a Filipino, you can become a permanent resident very easily as well. You can do it on a short time scale and stuff. So there is benefits to being from the Philippines, the same as you would get from Argentina and other places. But some of the other places have got even more rights. But it's no guaranteed and automatic. It's a case of got to go through the processes. And the reason I'm not saying it's this, because in Spain you have a lot of things that differ locally as well. So you'll get like my residency was a pain to do in Torrevieja, but in Alicante, not a problem. Torrevieja, difficult to deal with, and yet it's the same process. It's just their interpretation here is different to the office in Alicante, but also the one here is dealt with by the local police. To do all the paperwork, while up in Alicante, it's actually people from the immigration officials and stuff that, that's their job, where the guys here are local police. So their understandings are very different. Yeah, Johnny, NBI raided Barry Jordan. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get involved with what Barry's doing. Barry's Barry. He's not really. He's not my problem, and I don't plan on making him my problem. What he does is whatever. So I'm not really into that. But yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, would I recommend Spain or the Philippines? If you're a single, I would say go to the Philippines first. And there's a lot of different things out there because they're very different countries. Yeah, at the same time, there's a lot of similarities. The legal processes and documentation, a lot of that was brought from Spain to the Philippines, and the way it's set up, there's a lot of stuff that's very similar. But I find it in the Philippines, it's easier to meet people. It's easier from an engagement point of view, if you're looking for a partner, for example. It's a different country to travel around. It's easy to get on a motorbike and tour around. Spain is a lot more vast in the sense of it's got a lot of different, if you go up to the north of the country, it's very different to the south. You've got a lot of different varieties of food, different regions that are very political in many ways. In the Philippines, I find it's a bit more laid back. Although people, if you want to get into politics, they'll get into politics with you. But a lot of the time, it's a bit more laid back. People are more interested in the day-to-day stuff and chilled out and doing their own thing. In Spain, I find that some of this is being drawn out, Catalan, etc., because of wanting to be more autonomous, independent, etc. You got things around the Basque Country and things like that. But I do recommend, if you wanted to travel somewhere new or you haven't been out to Asia before, Philippines is a great spot to start. Spain is an interesting country, and if you are coming out here, I recommend doing a lot of research to the places to go, because although we're on the coast, it's very tourist orientated. But a place like Andalusia is fantastic, Valencia, Barcelona, Madrid, and Granada. Granada is fantastic. I don't know if I mentioned Andalusia as well. There. Might not, but there's a lot of things to see and do. There's a lot of different regional foods and stuff, but a lot of it's not really advertised very well. So you've got to try and get it all together. Get yourself a notebook and write down the things you want to. If you go, I want to go here, here, and here, then write down what things are there. So when you do get there, like if you go to Granada, if you want to go into the Alhambra, which is this massive palace. You can't turn up on the day and try and get in. The tickets are normally sold out. You've got to pre-book your tickets, but it's one of those, if you come to Spain and in Granada, it's a must-see place. Amazing place. Great for photography. Great place to walk around, but also Granada itself is very, it's a historic place to to travel around. And Airbnb, someone mentioned Airbnb earlier. There's a load of fantastic places to rent around Granada. You know, like one of the houses, like where you're just sitting and you can see the palace walls and stuff, and all the little cafes and stuff there. Fantastic place to be. So, yeah, you've got to decide what the trip's about when you're going to go to one of these places. Philippines, personally, road trips. Recommend doing road trips, traveling around, experience as much as you can, go to different places, meet as many people as you can. It's just a fantastic place to be. I mean, a lot of people talk about the safety aspects, and personally, I think you've got to take that decision yourself. Because some of these areas, because I was talking to Tom yesterday about, he was asking me about the area, and I said, look, Google it yourself, because they do have issues there. People have been kidnapped, etc. But you made that decision. Personally, I wouldn't go there. I would, go into Davao, no problem. But going into some of these other areas that can be a bit more risky, I would say, is it worth the trip? And I've been to other places. I mean, I've been down near Yemen and stuff when I was out in Oman and some other places that wouldn't be on the tour map. But there's things to see. So one of the things I do recommend is plan where you want to go and why you want to be there. Because there's going to be a lot of stuff in there that's specific. Because if you home in on it, you can make sure you're getting what you want out of the trip. That's what I was saying when Roy Gold mentioned the first timers probably want to go Palawan, etc. Because that's more tourist orientated places. There's a friend of mine actually lives in Boracay. They originally started off in Cebu and then moved to Boracay and loves it there. And I think he's still there. I haven't heard from him for a while. But it all depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking to retire to the Philippines, you may want to try some of the other areas first, or take the tourist one and then go elsewhere. All depends on what trip you're after. Because some people say live more provincial. I actually think that it doesn't take much to be provincial anyway. You don't have to be miles away from everything. If you look at the way Cebu is, the roads, you got Cebu City here, then the road is mainly on the outside. So the point is, anywhere in here is provincial. Cost of living reduces. Also, the temperature changes, so you don't need as much cooling and stuff in the evenings. There's lots of opportunities out there to get a cheaper place if you want a cheaper place. Or you want a condo and having all the mod cons, because living in somewhere like the Ayala, where Ayala is in Cebu, they have a lot of condo developments around there. SMC side is doing the same, where literally you're living in a fairly secure environment. The shopping malls are on your doorstep, easy access to the airports, easy access to the ports, and it's a safe environment to be in. Obviously, you're paying a premium for that, but like I said, you've got to weigh up what you actually want to do, what sort of thing you want, where suits you best. And that comes from actually traveling around a bit and just seeing, well, don't really like this area, or you find that you've gone somewhere provincial, it's on the coast, you can get a nice little house for 5,000-6,000 pesos a month, and it's near the coast, and you like it. Maybe a very basic place, but some people like that sort of stuff. Where are we? Glenn Roberts, have I been to Campo Sal? Not yet. I'll put that on the map. Hang on, I'll add that to my list. Because that actually came up in the conversation the other day, actually, about for somebody else. So I'll have a look at it, because I haven't even looked at what's there. Because for me, the big cities are places I've been interested in so far. Granada, Benidorm's an interesting one. Although it's not my holiday destination, it does have some interesting buildings in the area. That guy, doesn't your friend find Boracay boring after a while? Yes, he also finds it's overpriced, but he's got a reasonable military pension, because he come out of Iraq and he had some problems, so he's settled there and he's quite happy there. But he likes it. For me, I couldn't do it, but for him, he likes it. So can't knock it. He likes going out and getting in the waves first thing in the morning, and just having a completely stress-free life. So can't knock him for that. Braden Plummer, what is your name, YT? I'm not sure who that's directed to. Any other questions? Okay, it's a bit quiet. I'll wrap it up. I just thought I'd do a live show for today. I'm going to be doing more videos, like I said, on the personal development stuff, because I said there's a lot of stuff on there I do think it's worth looking at, and I do find there's a lot of opportunities there for people as well. Myself, I read a lot and I listen to a lot of stuff, because some of the stuff doesn't really, you'll find, I mean, this is the thing where you go through a lot of it, you might find like out of 10 main points, only about 4 are relevant, but those 4 are like golden bits of knowledge that I'd like to pass on to other people as well, because they're useful and practical. And I do know that some people have benefited, especially around the monetary stuff. And going to the Philippines, a lot of people actually went to the Philippines, not only from this YouTube channel, but before the YouTube channel, there used to be a blog. And some of the people I hadn't even spoken to, and they'd followed me around the internet since 2007. And then suddenly I just got people saying, oh yeah, I went to the Philippines and got married and whatever, because of the blog. And yet they never interacted with me for like 5-6 years. And then suddenly we're just chatting on Facebook, and then they mentioned it, in the sense that they know me from the blog, and then they would sort of become friends on Facebook. And then something occurred, like after 6 months or something, was chatting, and then they mentioned that that's where they knew me from. So it's quite bizarre when the reach on a lot of this stuff, thanks to social media today, plus the positive side, you can have a very broad reach, which is useful for people, because one of the things I'm worried about with YouTube is if it keeps clamping things down, it's going to damage its own business model. My personal view is this whole diversity and inclusiveness thing, I've got no problem with anybody doing whatever, but I also recognize that other people have different viewpoints to me. So I don't demand that they change their viewpoint to suit me. That would just be wrong, because if you're not happy with somebody's view or perspective or whatever, there's 2 things. Firstly, you've got to accept that not everybody has the same viewpoint. But 2, to change that is not by forcing them to not talk. It's about changing their viewpoint through engagement. Because as soon as you start suppressing it and stopping people engaging about it and talking about it and saying, well, hang on, this doesn't really make any sense, or don't get your viewpoint or whatever, and you go, well, you shut up, I'll just have my viewpoint, and that's the only one I want. It's gone down the path that a lot of these people were complaining about was done to them or previous generations even, because I've got to admit, everywhere I go, nobody has an issue with stuff. I mean, it's not really driven by trying to separate people out. Some of this is actually from stuff people have had for years, but it's not in the last decade, or last 15 years or whatever, because people have already changed. But often it could be a feeling, well, I feel that people don't really accept me for it. But if you ask them, and as I mentioned in my last video, I've got no problem with what anybody's doing as long as it's not hurting anybody else. But if I'm in a work environment, I don't even need to know if somebody's, what religion they are, what sexuality they have, or whatever. it's nothing to do with me. I'm there for a specific job, That's the difference between acquaintances and friends. And if the friends they have issues with, well, that has got nothing to do with the workplace. But one of the things that does change things is engagement. If you remove engagement, it doesn't benefit anybody. But anyway, guys, I'll get off my soapbox. It's been an hour chatting. Great to see you all. Take it easy.